It's all covered in today's China Truths.
Welcome to China Truths. Today, we bring you the latest news from the United States. Tonight, we follow a globe-spanning trail that ends not in mystery, but in cuffs. A Chinese national long suspected of fueling fentanyl's deadly march has been seized after a daring escape, a stopover in Cuba, and a rapid handoff that stunned investigators. He isn't the face at the pill press. He is the architect who turns chemicals, papers, and ships into a steady stream of poison. This is how the supply chain looks when you trace it from factory floor to funeral home. Start with the flight from house arrest. Under court supervision in Mexico, he slipped his ankle monitor and vanished. Alerts went out, borders were scanned, and months later, Havana flagged a traveler with a forged passport. Fingerprints matched. Cuba held him, Mexico coordinated, and within days, U.S. agents were closing in. What looked like chaotic movement was actually the moment a fractured international net snapped shut. Why did Washington move so fast? Agencies pieced together a map of suppliers, shell companies, freight corridors, and money conduits stretching across Asia to North America. Prosecutors say his real product was access. Brokers who would ship restricted precursors, logistics operators who would rebrand cargo, and middlemen who would parcel payments into 1,000 anonymous flows. A single facilitator like that makes seizures cosmetic. The pipeline keeps running. The escape exposed weak links and political pressure. Mexico faced outrage for loosening custody. Cuba chose to detain him despite sensitive relations. And U.S. prosecutors used the moment to link documents to people. The lesson for anyone handling precursor chemicals or shadowy shipments was blunt. Warehouse to bench to courtroom is a shorter trip than you think. This is not a one-off manhunt. It's a playbook. U.S. cases increasingly begin far upstream, in factories, in export paperwork, and in the encrypted chats that arrange relabeling and split shipments. Cash morphs into chips, chips into wire, and tiny transfers conceal vast sums. When investigators matched orders, phone traffic, and shipment spikes, patterns emerged. New companies appearing right before a vessel sailed, labels that flipped between industrial solvent and chemical precursor, and the same phone numbers recycled across seemingly unrelated firms. Politics shades the picture. The Chinese state publicly opposes narcotics, yet precursors move out of some factories and across export channels. Local crackdowns touch inconvenient speech more visibly than the warehouses that ship death abroad. Audiences don't need a lecture. The consequences are in morgues and grieving families. Paperwork and port manifests can be the starting line of a toxic supply chain. Now prosecutors have the man linked to the documents. With him in custody, investigators can test whether calls, contracts, and transfers line up with witness accounts and electronic records. If they do, the hidden blueprint of the trade will be laid bare before a jury, an economy of small lies and routine shipments that together make a lethal industry. That's the kind of accountability this cross-border problem needs. Quiet, methodical, and relentless. They look like harmless pills, but they kill without warning. Firefighters now face scenes they were never trained to handle, carrying trauma long after the flames are gone. None of this starts on the streets. It begins in boardrooms and shipping docks, with people who see barrels of chemicals not as danger but as profit. That's why the Shanghai case matters. He wasn't the one pressing pills. He was the one connecting production lines in China to criminal buyers abroad, turning industrial output into a deadly supply chain. Every shipment that cleared customs became powder in a cartel lab, pills in a basement press, and tragedy in another family's home. Officials in Beijing say they condemn drug trafficking, yet the factories keep operating, export agents keep falsifying documents, and overseas harm continues. What happens on U.S. streets is not random. It's the inevitable outcome of tolerated supply networks thousands of miles away. That's why the extradition mattered so much. Mexico came under fire for allowing a high-risk suspect to await trial with a tracking device. But when it accepted Cuba's handoff and delivered him to U.S. custody, it proved cooperation can overcome embarrassment. Every nation touched by this trade, whether in Asia, The Caribbean or North America has citizens at risk. Synthetic opioids do not respect borders. If you live in Berlin, Toronto, or Dublin, you are already in the blast radius. There's another kind of damage too, the economic one. Honest firms lose contracts to competitors who cut costs with stolen patents, tainted funding, or cheap chemicals from unsupervised suppliers. While Western workers lose jobs, the cartels gain power. The contradiction is glaring. The Chinese state silences bloggers but lets exporters ship toxic precursors that wreck lives overseas. Turning a blind eye is not neutrality, it's complicity. Real reform means hitting the chemistry, not just the dealers. It means suspending export rights for repeat offenders, freezing the insurance and financing that keep them afloat, and working with allies to track every mislabeled drum. And it also means public pressure. Real change starts when families, survivors, and voters refuse silence. If lawmakers hear the voices of parents who have buried their children, they act. The message is simple. Fewer shipments mean fewer funerals. The solution starts at the top of the chain, in the paperwork, not the alley. The United States has already begun to shift tactics. The DEA and Homeland Security have pushed investigations upstream to the brokers and exporters who thought distance was protection. These are quiet operations built on phone records, manifests, and shared databases. But when they work, the flow of poison slows. Each extradition becomes a warning. Global coordination is shrinking the world. Fake passports, third country layovers, shell companies, they no longer guarantee escape. If you're a broker in Guangdong or an executive in Hong Kong, you can still wake up in a U.S. courtroom. That's why this case is bigger than one indictment. It's about showing that consequences travel too. Washington can freeze insurers that back repeat offenders, sanction banks that move dirty capital, and force exporters to verify who they're selling to. Technology can now flag patterns across thousands of shipments that humans miss. Platforms that move cryptocurrency for cartels can be cut off, not just fined. This isn't about speeches, it's about systems that work. Citizens also have a role. Support cross-border enforcement programs that link investigators from the US, Mexico, and the Caribbean. Fund prevention tools like fentanyl test strips and overdose kits in schools. Back prosecutors who go after money launderers, not just street-level dealers. Demand transparency when universities or local governments partner with companies tied to chemical exporters. And yes, Beijing must face pressure too. Washington can present proof that specific Chinese factories continue to sell banned precursors and demand verified shutdowns. If refusals follow, tariffs and trade limits should match that choice. Firms that profit from this trade should lose access to Western markets, and officials who deny or delay should see diplomatic doors close. This isn't collective blame, it's targeted accountability. Families should not keep burying their children while suppliers enjoy protection at home. What comes next will decide whether this story becomes history or just another headline. Prosecutors will argue that Xiang knowingly fueled the trade. His lawyers will claim he simply sold legal chemicals. But the jury will face one undeniable question. If you sell ingredients designed to make poison, and you hide the truth to keep the money flowing, can you really say you didn't know what would happen next? Stories like this change how the world looks at the problem. The lesson is simple. Follow the trail back to the source. More arrests will come at airports and shipping ports. More fugitives will be sent back from countries once considered untouchable. And more cooperation will grow between the United States, Mexico, and others who have realized that ignoring this web only feeds it. Investigators are now looking beyond the street level, to the exporters, factory managers, and financial middlemen who thought distance made them invisible. When one organizer falls, another always takes his place. The only real solution is to shut down the source, close the factories that sell toxic precursors, and inspect the brokers who move them. If China's authorities will not act, economic consequences will. This story began with a man cutting off an ankle monitor, but it ends in homes across the world where parents now keep overdose reversal kits in kitchen drawers. It lives inside police stations weighed down by endless calls, and in hospitals where nurses see the same young faces over and over. It echoes in classrooms, churches, and community centers where people are trying to rebuild what was lost. A community that supports recovery and awareness makes it harder for poison to find new buyers. Strength at the local level is the best barrier to global supply. And we will keep watching. We will read every court filing, trace every company named, and ask questions no one in Beijing wants to answer. How can a government that censors words fail to monitor the warehouses shipping death abroad? Accountability is not about anger. It's about making sure the same pattern doesn't repeat. Transparency, exposure, and pressure at the right places are what make real change happen. To the families who have lost someone, you are not just numbers. To the towns that feel forgotten, you are not alone. And to those in power who believe borders will protect them, hear this clearly. The world is smaller now. The distance between a factory order and a courtroom verdict is closing fast. If governments don't police their own exporters, others will do it through sanctions, trade bans, and evidence laid bare in international courts. The era of pretending not to see is ending. The facts are catching up, and no one stays hidden forever. This story was never just about one fugitive. It's about a system that turned paperwork into poison and profit into funerals. Mexico's decision to extradite was more than a transfer. It was a message. Spread awareness. Help others see how deep this chain runs.
Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will keep reporting on the COVID surge in China, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. And thank you for tuning in.